school for this incredible experience. Shady Side Academy was founded about 133 years ago and has 3 campuses. You're currently on the 110-acre senior school campus and the site for our students that are in grades 9 through 12. Our middle school has students in grades 6 through 8, and it's very close to this campus. Our 3rd campus, the Shady Side Academy Junior School, is located in the city of Pittsburgh and serves pre-kindergarten through 5th graders. Right now, I'm pleased to invite to our stage and present Emily Fields, our music director at the junior school, who, with the help of some of our junior school students, will welcome you to Shady Side Academy musically. Welcome to the 2016 World's Individual Debating and Public Speaking Championship. I'm the speech and debate coach here at Shady Side Academy, along with my assistant, Sherry Hallgren, who you'll meet tonight. I'm a math teacher, also the Dean of Studies. I've lived in Pittsburgh for 40 years, but still have a slight accent because I'm originally from Chicago. Listen to the way I pronounce my A's, and you'll detect a Midwestern accent. See the A accent? I mention this because I heard many different accents last night as I welcomed people at the hotel. And that's what I got excited about this week. Do you know that people from Pittsburgh have accents? Hopians have hear some of our local expressions, learn some of those, and that, commonly known as Yinzers. You'll see some of that in Pittsburghese during the week that you're here. I've had the privilege of attending the last 3 World Championships. South Africa was my first Worlds, putting my feet into the Indian Ocean, going on a safari, and watching all the talented competitors in Durban was impressive. One of our Shady Side Academy students was a grand finalist, actually, in the interpretive reading event. In Lithuania, the flowers lining the walk to our competition site were a sea of yellow. The fountain outside the resort in Druskininkai, I had to practice that for a couple of days before we arrived in Lithuania, was fun to watch, but the students delivering their final speeches in the government building in Vilnius was inspiring, especially for a math teacher. Hong Kong, with its nightly light show, the dancing lion in the school courtyard, the incredibly talented harmonica musicians, and of course the gifted competitors on the awesome stage for the grand finals was truly an exciting experience for me. So now you're joining me here in Pittsburgh for my 4th Worlds. We have 3 rivers, but no one should dip their feet in the rivers. You could fall in, and then I would need to call River Rescue. Please don't do that. We have a wonderful fountain at the convergence of our 2 rivers, 2 of the 3 rivers, the Allegheny River and the Monongahela River. So you're going to need to work on that pronunciation. And while we don't have a colorful dancing lion, you will learn how to square dance on Saturday night, and we'll have the opportunity to hear our senior school jazz musicians and our a cappella group at the end of the week. We've spent many hours, you've spent many hours, so have we, but you've spent many hours preparing for these next few days of competition. We, your coaches, are excited to share this event with you. Many of you have competed in regional and national competitions to represent your country. You have already made your coach and your parents very proud. Now you have the opportunity to make your country proud. Have a wonderful week in Pittsburgh. I hope that your stay here is as full of pleasant surprises and excellent opportunities. Welcome. I'd like to introduce my co-convener and head of the senior school at Shady Side Academy, Kate Fapetic.
Hi, everybody. It's a little bit like an obstacle course back here, so if I shift around, hopefully I won't fall down on the risers and things for the little kids. Welcome, everybody. It's been so great the last 24 hours to see old friends, people I've known for well over 10 years, to meet some new students, and I look forward to meeting all of you this week. Welcome to Shady Side, welcome to Pittsburgh, welcome to the United States. As I look ahead to this week, there is something I have to acknowledge and kind of get right off the bat, right off my chest. I know that everybody on the U.S. team, every American in this room, is probably going to be subjected to some gentle ribbing and outright teasing, maybe, about our esteemed and exemplary election process. So let's just put it all out in the open right before we go any further. As an American, I'm experiencing major secondhand embarrassment on behalf of all of the politicians running for president, regardless of which party they represent. It's really quite disturbing to turn on the television and be subjected to the shock and awe, circus-like reality TV show that our campaign process has become. As long as the next president of the United States ultimately is able to shake hands proudly and confidently with other world leaders, it really doesn't matter how big his or her hands are. I mean, really, honestly, people. So that's sort of out of the way. Maybe we can move on for the week. So I was not a debater in high school. I've actually never formally debated, as Dan Hillman, our keynote speaker, will probably tell you. I'm a French teacher by training, and as a French teacher, I'm someone who loves intercultural communication and language. I also love debating and public speaking, and more specifically, coaching debate and public speaking. What I love is a near-perfect prime minister's rebuttal, when the speaker clarifies every single key argument and boils the debate down so clearly for me that picking a side is like choosing between wearing boots or going barefoot in a blizzard. I love hearing that persuasive speech that still makes me wonder each morning as I brush my teeth whether my toothbrush is giving me cancer. And I loved spending hours with a former world champion speaker while he was crafting his after-dinner speech, hunched over his computer like two jewelers cutting and polishing a stone. As each word fell into place with that little mental click like Lego bricks, we'd high-five each other and declare the word, then the sentence, then the paragraph, then the entire speech, locked. Perfect. Signed, sealed, delivered. Hosting the World Individual Debating and Public Speaking Championship here this week is a luxury. Really, despite all of the crazy details and the rooming lists and the changes and the flight delays and booking hotel rooms for kids at the airport at the last minute, I do get reminded every single day, and have been for the last year, that the reason United Flight 480 is arriving at 6:25 today is because the coaches and competitors on it love debating and public speaking as much as I do. That's what makes this week so much fun, and that's what makes hosting it even more fun. I think it's a huge privilege to host. So I'll remember all the speeches I've heard and the coaching moments forever, thanks to that perfect synergy of language and content, of form and function. And that's why I think we all keep coming back here 28 years later after it was founded. We're looking for that mot juste, that, as the French would say, that perfect turn of phrase that we can say is locked, signed, sealed, and delivered. So welcome to Worlds 2016. I promised myself I wouldn't cry, but it's so overwhelming to see you here. Thank you for joining us. Sit back, relax. We have an amazing week planned. And it's my super duper pleasure to introduce my other two passions, Blaze and Nico.
Hi, my name is Blaze Vavpedic, and this is my brother Nico. Nico and I want to officially welcome you to the United States, to Pittsburgh, and to our amazing school. When I was just a baby, my parents used to bring me to debate practice, and I got the chance to listen to all the debaters' speeches. If I liked them and thought they were good, I'd clap my hands and smile and giggle. If I didn't like them, or they were boring, I would get fussy. My parents used me as the blazometer. If I got fussy, the debaters knew to work on their delivery and speeches more. If I liked it, they knew they were good. I also got kidnapped one year by the debate team on my birthday, but that's another story entirely. Believe it or not, this is my third Worlds Championship, and this is Nico's second. Raise your hand if you've been to Worlds before. Raise your hand if you've been to 3 like me. Congratulations. The Worlds I remember most clearly was in Brisbane, Australia in 2011. Holding a koala, swimming in the Great Barrier Reef, seeing fruit bats as big as me, celebrating my 6th birthday. Boy, that was a really challenging competition. Whew. Even though I was too little to watch the actual debates, I still got a sense of how hard you have to work to get to the Worlds. Because I watched the U.S. debaters practicing and practicing for the rounds. At the junior school, my 5th grade class just finished a persuasive essay unit. Our capstone project was a debate. Senior school students came in and did a mock debate for us so we could see what it was like to be in a real one. At the end, the rest of the class voted for which side won the debate. Then they worked with us to polish our arguments, and at the end of our debates, the class voted for the winning side by moving to one side of the room or the other. I hope that if we have another unit, I can use some of the techniques I'll see you using in your debates and speeches this week. I'm counting on you for good material. Nico and I hope that you do your best this week at the tournament. We're rooting for you and can't wait to hear what you have to say. Congratulations on getting here and good luck.
I love donuts. While this may seem like a random fact to you, it actually links me to our close friend and keynote speaker for today, Dan Hillman. The year before I was born, Dan won a debate team award at Hotchkiss called the Dunkin' Donuts Award for the debater who buys the most food whenever the team stopped for breakfast. I'm sure he still displays that paper plate proudly in his New York City apartment. Dan is my favorite debater in the whole wide world. And in fact, he's traveled all over the world. I remember stories of Dan visiting the Taj Mahal in India, competing at Worlds in Cyprus with my daddy, and living for 2 years in Sierra Leone, Africa. He's taught debate to inner city kids in New York City and judged at Worlds when my mommy and daddy hosted it in 2006. Dan is one of those people who's always there when you need him and who makes a positive difference in people's lives. Heck, he even made my big brother famous by naming a belt after him, which can be bought online at www.burrit.com. Dan's first company that sells handmade belts from Sierra Leone. And he didn't pay me to say that. I thought it would be great to have Dan talk with you today because he knows everything you're going through this week. And he uses the skills he learned as a high school debater every single day. And my daddy says that he's the best BSer in the whole world. We love Dan dearly, and I think you will too. Please welcome our keynote speaker, Dan Hillman.
It's a really interesting moment to come back and be the old guy at one of these tournaments. I remember being in your position, falling asleep at precisely this moment, either because of the jet lag or because of the speaker or both. Sometimes it was because I'd been up all night the previous evening working. Whatever the reason, I'm very grateful you're listening, I'm very grateful you're awake, and I promise I'm going to move quickly. The other reason it feels weird for me to be a speaker here is I really don't feel like I've done anything that qualifies me to speak here. Nico's introduction is very, very touching, but if I have to be honest with you guys, I'm a 28-year-old, soon to be 29-year-old. I have a small tech company in New York City, and while that sounds exciting, the reality is we miss payroll this month. Professionally, things are very difficult. There are lots of credentials we accumulate through life, and competing at this tournament is one of those credentials, but they don't always translate to success, or they don't always translate to success in the way we think about it. So if you'll indulge me entirely, I'm going to be perfectly honest and try to cut through the BS as much as possible. You guys can identify BS, I can identify BS, there's no point. We get in such a habit of lying to ourselves that we start lying to other people and don't notice. When you've had a shitty day and someone asks you, "How are you?" you say, "It's been great." Or when you've had a bad result on a test, you say, "It doesn't really matter." We lie to ourselves. We lie to others. Appearances deceive. And there's no gain from that. So I'm going to tell you exactly what's going on in my life and exactly what I learned from it, and hopefully there will be some gain from that. Last night, my co-founder, Mike, the co-founder of my tech company, and I had a brutal conversation, and it made me throw away the speech I'd already prepared that was full of slick anecdotes and meaningless tropes that all of you would have forgotten by tomorrow. What we talked about was how difficult our company is right now, how we're trying everything we can think of, working all the time, trying to get consulting money in, trying to get new contracts, trying to get investors, and how everything we're doing at the moment isn't working. We talked about the real prospect, if things keep going the way they're going, of having to shut down the business, of having to let go of our workers, having real people's lives affected, losing a boatload of money for our investors, having their lives affected, total and catastrophic failure. So when I stand here in front of you, it's not as some success or as some symbol of tech innovation or any of that junk. It's someone who really couldn't pay himself this month. And it reminds me of a quote I've been thinking a lot about that I'm just going to read to you, and that's going to frame the rest of my chat. And Machiavelli said this. He said, "The great majority of mankind are satisfied with appearances, as though they were realities, and often more influenced by things that seem than by those that are." If there's one thing debate teaches you, it's that's true, right? You can spin a web and make people believe anything that seems instead of what they are. But now that you guys know a little bit more about me, as a possibly broke 29-year-old, hopefully I can talk to you about how things are and not just how they seem. Debate and public speaking, they're awesome, right? I commend all of you for being here, and I don't need to repeat what other people have said. You guys have accomplished a lot. You're all skilled public speakers, you're all skilled bullshitters, you're all skilled, you fill in the blanks. But one thing I want to really harp on is there's a danger to being so skilled in argument. There's a whole thread of psychological research about confabulation. It's a fancy word, but basically what it means is we feel something or we decide on something, and then we become lawyers or we become debaters, and we invent reasons to justify those decisions in the first place, right? It's like when someone tells you which side of a debate you have to argue, and you invent reasons, real or not, to support that side. The truth is, most of us in the audience, almost all of us in fact, feel a response and then come up with reasons for it. It's why when someone tells you an opinion, you don't consider all the alternatives, you don't research the facts and then decide what's the best outcome. You immediately feel an outcome and then search for the reasons to justify it, right? We inverse the process. And as debaters, we are particularly good at inverting this process. We are particularly good at fooling ourselves that we are using logic to come up with a rational decision when instead we're using logic to back in to a rational decision. And why do I bring this up? Why is this important? Well, for me, the most vivid example of this was my first job after college. As Nico said, I went to live in Sierra Leone for 2 years, working for a research lab at MIT, a research lab in the economics department. And when anyone asked me why I took the job, I said I was looking for adventure, I wanted to do economic research, I loved economic research. In reality, that's all crap. If I was really looking for adventure, I would have applied for more than just one job in sub-Saharan Africa. If I really wanted to do economic research, I would have applied for more than just one job in economic research. The truth is, I intuitively felt that I liked the status of working for MIT, and the possibility of getting a PhD, which I didn't do, also appealed to me. I then came up with logical, reasonable reasons that I could tell everyone as to why I was doing it. But in the end, I was doing it for the worst reasons, reasons that I felt, and reasons that I didn't understand at the time. All BS. As Mr. V said, I was pretty good at it. So, too many of us, and too many of my early choices, were driven by that status, by that seeking of external validation, by that search for approval, for the good grades, for the good results in the debate, for the high status results. And we're particularly good at doing that as debaters because we can talk our way into anything, we can talk our way into jobs we don't deserve, we can talk our way into lots. But so long as we don't recognize that we are fooling ourselves when we do this as well, we get into a lot of trouble. And so this leads me to one question that I'm going to discuss sort of a little bit with you, which is, why isn't the world happier today than it was 60 years ago? Or at least the countries that are represented in the audience today. Why aren't your countries happier today than they were 60 years ago? I looked up the happiness index, and none of the countries here are, right? The US is 4 times richer than it was in 1950. All of your countries are better off, and none of us actually are happier. None of the individuals in those communities are any better off. And there's lots of ideas for why this is. There's a couple people who have done tons of research on it, and I wish I knew some of the conclusions of their research when I was in your seats, because then you can optimize for what works and make decisions on what's important rather than just waffling through life hoping to find happiness. So one of the main reasons we're not happier is because people are seeking status, right? people want to have the biggest house or the nicest car. But the problem is, if one person has the biggest house, no one else can. If someone has the nicest car, no one else can. Status is by definition a zero-sum game. And while it seems trivial when it comes to houses and cars, it's really important when it comes to what we do with our lives. Today, my peer group is mostly going into technology and consulting. 10 years ago, that peer group was going into finance. 40 years ago, that peer group was going into corporate law. You see it again and again with each generation. The high status, the high prestige jobs attract people, not because they actually like corporate law, who actually likes corporate law, but because it's the easy way out. It's their way to win the power struggle. And so long as we all keep searching after that power struggle, that status symbol, none of us are going to win. And so back to me for a second, which is important. In large part, thanks to the debate, I got this job at MIT that took me to Sierra Leone. And when I was there, I got really, really lucky. Really lucky. I learned that, among other things, I would have been miserable if I'd done a PhD. Absolutely miserable. Economic research, for me, would have been the worst thing to do, right? It would have gotten me the status. It would have gotten me this great credential of a PhD that I could hold over anyone else who didn't have that PhD for the rest of my life. But I would have been unhappy. What made me happy, what made me care about work, what made me care about getting out of bed, and this was pure chance that I discovered it, was taking ideas and seeing if they were viable in the real world. In Sierra Leone, I was tasked with rolling out a new microcredit product. Take this crazy idea, see if it works in the real world. And everything I've done since is entirely around that. The one thing I realized I like. I'm not sure I want to grow a big business. I'm not sure I'd be happy with a huge business. Don't worry, that's not an opportunity in front of me right now. But the thing I like isn't necessarily taking a viable project and scaling it. What I like is taking these crazy ideas and making them viable. So for me, I'm going to focus everything I do around that one thing I really like. Doesn't matter the industry. It can be retail, it can be technology, it can be microfinance, it can be solar. I've done it all. It's cool. It doesn't really matter to me. For you guys, you need to figure out what it is you like. And for almost everyone in the room, it's not going to be the stuff that gives you the most status. And that's okay. In fact, it's better than okay. Because typically the stuff that gives you the most status also is the stuff that ruins all the other parts of your life that give you happiness. So if you're in corporate law, you spent your entire 20s and 30s in the office, ruined all your friendships from college, and those are the foundations of a satisfactory life, right? Relationships, the people around us. So if in the next month, or in 2 months, or in 3 months, my company folds and I'm unemployed, what I'm going to say is don't worry about me. I'll find something to cover the bills, and I'll be fine. Not because of the degrees or because of the credentials, but because I focused on having people in my life who I can count on, because I have a rough idea of the kind of work I like, not a perfect idea, but a rough, and because my definition of success isn't to become the next Mark Zuckerberg. None of us in this room are likely to become the next Mark Zuckerberg. We all need to find success and satisfaction that comes from within and not from these status symbols, not from the credentials, not from winning the debate, not from placing first, but from doing the work that we enjoy. So just to wrap things up, don't BS yourselves. It's pretty easy to do it. You're all very talented at it. Take a step back whenever you feel something and try to actually understand the root causes of those feelings, and you'll all end up making much better choices. So have a great week in Pittsburgh. Thank you very much.
As I was driving through the Strip District last week, the neighborhood in which we'll be eating dinner tonight, I noticed something really odd. Driving right next to me in the other lane was a small Lexus with a spinning apparatus on top of it. The side of the car was painted with the words Uber ATC, but most worryingly to me, the car was driving itself. As this mysterious car turned itself away from me, without a driver in it, down a road past a post-industrial modern art gallery, I was filled with pride. The juxtaposition of the futuristic car and the steel mill era buildings epitomized what Pittsburgh has become, which is a center of innovation with a rich and preserved past. When you think of the great cities around the world, New York, London, Singapore, Shanghai, Paris, Hong Kong, as you guys know from last year, Pittsburgh typically doesn't come to mind. We Pittsburghers know that better than anyone else. And I'm sure in the months leading up to this event, your expectations were not as high as they might have been for last year's event. But when you stepped off the plane, you got into one of our signature yellow school buses, your expectations were hopefully shattered. As you came through the Fort Pitt Tunnel, as we saw up there, into full view of our revitalized, bustling city, you saw a renewed heart of our region. Nursing our city out of a middle-aged heart attack after the steel industry collapsed, we decided to not fall victim to the disease that other Rust Belt cities have succumbed to. We rebuilt. That's a theme you'll notice throughout your time in our town. The commitment to revitalization and redevelopment, using the infrastructure of the old as space for our now bustling research and development centers, is what makes Pittsburgh stand out as a shining light in the midst of a deindustrialized Midwest. It's what makes Pittsburgh special to me. As a student and as a learner, there is nothing I'd rather be immersed in than development and growth. Stagnation and even decline is something that I won't accept, and is something Pittsburgh residents have refused to as well. With our world-class institutions, Carnegie Mellon University, University of Pittsburgh, and more, we have had the human capital to bring our city back and remain in a position of strength. We have hosted the G20 Summit, called 3 winning sports teams our own, been named the top food city in the entire world by Zagat, and continue to lead in medical and robotic development. As competitors, you'll only begin to get a taste of what makes Pittsburgh so great to all of us living in this region. I know, for example, that you won't come back to your country of origin saying that Pittsburgh is a third-rate city decaying into obscurity with only a good sports team preventing a complete collapse. You're not going to say that, hopefully. Instead, I'm confident that you'll fly back to your friends and family and repudiate their preconceived notions of what Pittsburgh's about. I can promise you that you will leave this city with more than just a positive impression. You'll leave invigorated by the technology, by the growth, and most importantly, by the people. On behalf of Shady Side Academy debate team, welcome to Pittsburgh. Thank you.
So Shady Side has been a second home of mine for the past 7 years, and we as a community, all of us here, are honored to share it with you. With a student body of around 500, Shady Side enjoys a close-knit community of highly motivated and exemplary individuals who push one another to consistently be at their best. Many of these students will be volunteering at this event, and they're all eager to meet fellow teenagers from around the world. Our faculty is highly regarded for their ability to facilitate individualized and tailored approaches that help every student grow uniquely. All of these factors, combined with a tireless administration, have helped make Shady Side Academy one of the most highly ranked and competitive private high schools in the United States. It's also important to specifically recognize the contributions of the Shady Side Academy speech and debate team. Our team is coached by Mrs. Crowland and led by Sean Fye, Abby Minard, and I. We compete locally, nationally, and most recently internationally with everyone else here. I even had the unique opportunity to go to Hong Kong last year. However, this year, spearheaded by our head of school, Ms. Vepedic's own experience, Shady Side Academy is hosting the world's individual debate and public speaking championship on our senior school campus. I'd like a round of applause for every member on our team who helped put this tournament together. Even though all of us weren't interviewed by the press or cast in the limelight, each member deserves all the credit for making this tournament happen. Now introducing someone who is incredible at debate and perhaps has the most unique and diverse set of speaking skills and will be competing with all of you, Abby Minard. Thank you and good luck.